The first thing he felt was the laughter. Not his own, the universe's. It sounded like tearing metal and distant thunder as reality split open above a ruined city, a jagged grin of emerald light in a sky already on fire. Ash fell like gray snow over broken hive towers while tanks burned in the streets and tracer fire stitched the clouds. For the soldiers of the 812th Vero's infantry, it looked like just one more warp anomaly in a war filled with them. They dug in and prayed. Vox units screamed warnings. Chaplains clutched relics. Then something tumbled out of that smirking wound in space and crashed into the mud of a shell crater with a wet, undignified splat. Silence followed. No demons, no lightning, no wave of psychic fire. Just a man lying on his back in the middle of a war zone, staring up at the choked orange sky, his purple coat smoldering, his green hair still smoking at the tips. The Joker blinked, coughed ash and grinned. Now that, he whispered, was one hell of a punchline. He sat up and drank in the view. The horizon was a forest of severed spires and collapsing habblocks. Whole manufactorums burned like candles. High above, titanic starships traded lances of light, each blast like a new sun. Closer, tanks ground over broken masonry, guns barking. Beyond it all, somewhere in the distance, something inhuman roared, deep and wrong, and men screamed in answer. He sniffed. Promethium. Cordite. Ozone. Burned meat. Smells like home, he said, brushing dirt from his lapels. Hands where I can see them. Now. He turned. Half a dozen humans in drab armor crouched on the crater's rim, lasguns trained on his head. Their uniforms were patched and filthy, but every sash and seal was in its proper place. Aquila emblems glared from breastplates and medals. The front man, a scarred sergeant, looked like he'd forgotten how to smile years ago. By order of the God Emperor, the sergeant barked, "Identify regiment and rank." Joker looked down at himself. Purple coat, green vest, white gloves now stained with mud and someone else's blood from earlier in the evening. Then he looked back up, eyes bright. "Oh, I'm not from around here," he said. "Think of me as a guest performer." One of the younger troopers muttered, "What's wrong with his face?" Joker clapped a hand to his chest, offended. "Rude. You invade one dimension, everyone's a critic." "On your knees." The sergeant snapped. "Face in the dirt. Now, let's not rush straight to the execution phase." Joker spread his arms, twirling in the crater like he was on a stage instead of a battlefield. "You people introduce yourselves with such enthusiasm. God Emperor this, identify that, purge the other thing. Where's the mystery? Where's the suspense? Where's the—" The lasgun cracked. Joker blurred to the side. The beam sizzled through the space his head had occupied a heartbeat earlier, and burned a smoking gouge into the rubble behind him. When he straightened, he was holding something small and metallic between two fingers, like a magician revealing a coin. "See, that's what I mean." He sighed. "You never let the setup breathe." He tossed the capsule underhand. It landed between their boots with a soft clink. The sergeant glanced down. The Joker's grin widened. The capsule burst with a hiss, vomiting purple gas that rolled over the soldiers like a living thing. They coughed, stumbled, squeezed their eyes shut and fired blindly. One man dropped his gun and clawed at his throat. Another started laughing. High, breathless giggles that made the others recoil before they, too, began to chortle. The sergeant tried to shout an order. It came out as a strangled chuckle. His face reddened, veins stood out in his neck, tears streamed down his cheeks. He fell to his knees, still laughing, hands clawing at an invisible noose. The Joker watched, head tilted, gas mask snug over his own face. "To be fair," he said conversationally, stepping through the swirling fog, "I did ask nicely." In a minute, the crater was full of corpses, all with the same stretched, glassy-eyed smile. He slipped off the mask and inhaled the ash-heavy air with a pleased sigh. New world, same reaction. Comedy really is universal. He picked up the sergeant's Vox unit, slung it over his shoulder, and climbed out of the crater, whistling as artillery screamed overhead. The city introduced itself as he wandered. He passed tank columns grinding through the ruins, huge cannons glowing from overuse. Infantry companies chanted prayers as they advanced, some already limping, bandaged, bleeding. Smoke trailed from distant titans like wounded gods. Banners snapped from shattered towers. Double-headed eagles, skulls, armored saints with swords raised to a heaven that looked like a bruise. The Vox chattered in his ear, a constant, panicked chorus. 3rd Platoon lost in Hab Sector 12. Repeat, warp anomalies inside the trench line. By order of the Inquisition, all unauthorized psychers are to report to. And over, like a refrain in a very dull song. For the Emperor, for the Emperor, for the Emperor. Jokar rolled his eyes. You people need new material. He fiddled with dials until he found what sounded like a command channel. All clipped authority and no screaming. Perfect. This is, let's call me special guest, he said into the mic. First-time caller. Long-time fan of mass slaughter. Big shout-out to the boys in gray dying in sector. Well, all of them. After a sharp burst of static, a harsh voice replied. This is Lord General Varro Serevan of the 19th Crusade. You are on secured command frequency. Identify regiment and code or be sanctioned under. Knock knock, Jokar said. Silence. He smiled slowly. I said, knock knock, General. Serevan clearly did not have time for this. You will cease transmission immediately or... Knock. Knock. There was a faint clatter in the background, as though someone had dropped a data slate. When the general spoke again, his voice had the strained patience of a man who wanted to order an orbital strike on a radio. Who's there? The Joker's grin sharpened. An improvement. He cut the connection, laughing to himself. Not long after, he saw his first Space Marine. The giant stood in the ruins of an avenue lined with crushed statues, blue armor scorched and pitted with claw marks. Golden trim gleamed beneath the soot. A stylized U was emblazoned on his shoulder like a brand. Around him, his squad moved with cold efficiency, checking piles of twitching alien corpses that looked like someone had tried to sculpt rage out of meat and teeth. Jokar ducked behind a broken column and watched, fascinated. The humans nearby treated the armored warriors like living saints. Their eyes shone with fanatical awe. The Marines' voices boomed through helmet speakers, every word a proclamation. In the name of the Ultramarines and the Pre-March, their sergeant said, we hold this line until the last man. The last man, the guardsmen echoed. Jokar smiled. Oh, I like you already, Big Blue. He waited until the Marines began to move, then wandered out into the open like he was strolling through a park rather than a kill zone. Excuse me, he called. Question. Every weapon in the street snapped toward him. He raised his hands, palms outward. Just a friendly face in a very unfriendly war. The nearest guardsman gaped. Saints preserve us. The ultramarine at the front studied Jokar in silence. Up close, he was enormous, a walking bunker of ceramite and hatred. His helm lenses glowed red. A bolt pistol the size of a brick hung at his hip. A chainsword rested on his shoulder like a casual afterthought. Xenos, one of the other Marines murmured. Mutant, said another. The sergeant's voice boomed. In the Emperor's name, state your allegiance. My allegiance. Jokar tapped his chin thoughtfully. To chaos, darling. The good kind. The kind with punchlines. The bolter came up almost lazily, aimed directly at his chest. In the name of Robert Gilliman, Pre-March of the Ultramarines, and by the will of the God Emperor of mankind, the sergeant intoned, you are condemned. See, that right there is your problem, Jokar said, drawing a long, slender pistol from inside his coat. You skip straight to the verdict. No trial, no suspense. No wonder everyone here is so tense. The guardsman flinched as he pointed the pistol at his own head. What are you doing? One whispered. Building tension, Jokar said, as if it were obvious. Maybe this is a trick gun. Maybe it's a confetti cannon. Maybe it's wired to something under your pretty boots. Maybe it's loaded with something that will make this entire street very interesting. His finger caressed the trigger. The Marine's aim did not waver. You are insane. Professionally, Jokar agreed. He swung the barrel down and shot the ground between them. The bullet sank into the rubble, humming.